Good evening. I call the Public Services Committee meeting to order. The date is June 16th, 2025. The time is 6:31 p.m. We have one item on this evening's agenda, and that is order number 25-100-9478, a communication from the Planning Board regarding request for Mayor and City Council to support a home rule petition relating to unaccepted private ways in the City of Marlborough. I know we have City Engineer Tom DiPersio here to give us a quick presentation. Thank you for being here, Mr. Engineer. While you get settled, I will read the letter from the Planning Board dated June 3rd, 2025. Dear Mayor Dumas and members of the City Council, the Planning Board seeks the Mayor and City Council's cooperation in addressing the issue of unaccepted private ways in Marlborough. These are roads which are created via the subdivision control law that were never accepted as public ways. There's a list of over 50 such roads in the city. Many of these roads were constructed decades ago, and the residents who have been living on these streets may not be aware that their streets are not public ways. As you know, the acceptance process typically involves the legal conveyance of property rights from the owner and developer of the subdivision to the city immediately upon completion of construction. For many different reasons, in decades-old subdivisions, the process of street acceptance was not completed. Due to the passage of time, it would be extremely difficult or impossible to assemble the parties and legal documents to complete the acceptance process today. In most of these cases, the original developers of the subdivisions are no longer available, or the entities are now defunct. A home rule petition would give the city the authority it needs to address this longstanding issue via an alternative process. This issue is not unique to Marlborough, and other communities in Massachusetts have successfully pursued similar measures, allowing them to accept unaccepted roads that meet basic criteria for public use and benefit. Acceptance of roadways as public ways has many implications that the City Council, Planning Board, and Department of Public Works will need to consider. Where it is appropriate and in the public interest to do so, this home rule petition will provide the city with the ability to address this longstanding issue. We ask that the City Council consider advancing the attached petition in partnership with the Mayor's Office, Planning Board, and our legislative delegation to provide a lawful path toward accepting appropriate unaccepted roads as public ways. Where it's appropriate to do so, sincerely, Marlborough Planning Board. Thank you, Mr. Engineer, and the floor is yours.
Hi, councilors, Chair Fucillo. I thought I was going to have a couple members of the Planning Board here with me. The Planning Board established a working group of a couple of members, and they and myself have been working on this home rule petition for me it goes back to with City Solicitor Don Ryder about 8 years ago. We started drafting this. I thought I should just give a quick elevator kind of background on what this means, and a little bit of background on the list that I know President Ossing shared with you. That list it's our street list. It is a list of all the public ways, but it includes all the ones that are listed as private. So private ways, there's several different types of private ways on this list. There's some that are just referred to as ancient ways, or they're ways that maybe were created on a plan in the early 1900s or say pre-1950s that may have been constructed, but for some unique reason that dates back to when it was constructed was never accepted by the city as a public way. Some of those ancient ways are referred to as paper streets, so they maybe were constructed as part of an old plan, again, pre-1950s, or created by plan but never constructed. And there's several of those in the city that maybe they're partially constructed, or they've got driveways that go down. Clover Street is an example of that off of Clover Hill, that it's in front of the Planning Board now by a developer that wants to develop some of the old lots on this paper street. Another type of private roads are condominium roads, or roads that are part of the mobile home parks. Those were created by site plan, and they're really, we call them also named driveways. So there's never been an intent for those to become public ways, but they're on this list nevertheless. So those two groups together make up about 118 or so of the roads that are listed as private on this list. The last subset are the ones that really this home rule petition deals with, and those are unaccepted subdivision roads. And I put in my letter about 50. There's probably about that number, and then another 15 or so that are a subdivision road that's half accepted and half not accepted, because maybe the subdivision was built in a couple of phases. So it's, again, those are the ones that that this home rule petition is intended to deal with. And so the subdivision control law was passed in the state of Massachusetts in 1953, and then all the cities and towns started adopting it after that. And Marlborough was in, I think, in the early 60s. So the subdivision control law sets out a process for roads that get constructed as part of that, for those to get accepted. So the subdivision gets approved by the planning board. The road gets built in accordance with that approved plan. The developer then does as-built plans and acceptance plans of the road. And then it's the developer's responsibility to request the city accept the road when it's done, and the city agrees that it was done in accordance with the plans. And then the city council would vote on that acceptance. After that vote, then there's the actual conveyance of the road. The actual property gets deeded from the developer to the city, and then if there's easements involved, the easement rights also get deeded from the developer to the city. So there's a lot of paperwork involved in that. So this list of about 50 unaccepted roads are ones that generally were all built, for the most part, built to completion. But somewhere during those subsequent steps, the process never got to the finish line. Each one has kind of a unique story, but it's all generally that same thing where the paperwork didn't get finished. Maybe the acceptance plan wasn't properly filed. Maybe the developer just never came to the committee meeting to make sure it got voted on. Maybe it died before it got to committee. It died in committee. There's all different reasons for it. And the issue now with trying to accept these roads is that there's a lot of, these are decades old. In many cases, the developer's long gone, deceased, the entity is dissolved. It's really, there's no easy way to collect all the proper paperwork, 35 years later, to try to properly go through the process. So that's what this home rule petition would do. It would set up with the state legislature a procedure by which the city could, if the city council decides that it's in the city's interest, accept one or more of these roads. And the procedure's laid out in the petition, in the home rule petition, and it involves a public hearing with the planning board, a certification from the planning board to the city council, and then a vote by the city council. And engineering would be involved to make sure we've got the proper plans in place to make reference to, so that the city council knows exactly what we're accepting. So why do we want to go back and accept these? Well, so one reason is that the state appropriates money to cities and towns each year for road construction projects, and it's based partly on how many miles of public roads we have. So accepting these would get some mileage onto our inventory, our Mass DOT inventory, for an increase in our appropriation. So that's just an explanation of what this is and why we're here to do this. So I can take questions now.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Engineer. This has been some good information, kind of filled some of the gaps that I have. I know I still have a few questions, but I'll open it now to members of Public Services. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And Tom, thank you for the work with this. Tracking down all this is as an arduous issue. But these roads are pretty old, like you said, decades, maybe 20, 30 years old. So when we acquired these roads, I'm thinking of one in particular, I'm trying to pull up the list right now, but they're probably not going to be in very good condition either. So there would, while we accept these, we're probably going to need to take into account that those ones are going to specifically require some road work as we acquire them.
Yeah, so that's the obvious question. That's a good question. And you're right, they're all old, and we're essentially taking on roads that are going to need some work, sooner than later, some of them. So that it gets back to, what's the city council really's appetite for telling the people that live on these roads that we're not going to fix them because of whatever happened in this process?
Well, so I think I know one of these roads, okay? Because I've been getting complaints about getting the road fixed for years. And I've submitted stuff in C-Click Fix plenty of times, but never gets fixed because I do believe it's one of those roads. So if the roads need work, they're not getting work done because they're not accepted, and you end up with very angry constituents who are very frustrated because they're paying taxes, but their road's not getting work done. I mean, that's the current condition.
Yeah, and full disclosure, we really haven't, if a road needs repairs, and it's at a place where, certainly if public safety is at issue, or if it's a real nuisance, we make those repairs on those roads. That's,
okay.
So I don't know.
At least if it's a safety issue, we'll make the repairs.
Yeah, and really, we probably, this issue hasn't really clearly been outlined, or defined, or we haven't really wrapped our heads around, at least, say, before 10 years ago, can we do work on these roads? So there's some of these roads on this list that we have done work on. We've done repaving and,
Okay.
so.
Okay, thank you for the clarification with that. I appreciate that.
Councilor Irish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the same note, thank you for Councilor Doucette asking. That was my other question about the cost. And thank you for doing this. It's quite an undertaking of this procedure. The other question I had is some of these roads are older, and that's a lot of work matching up easements as well. Is that going to be a problem for engineering at all? If there's, because you have to bring the easement over as well with a plot plan or any kind of a plan.
So, because these roads went through the subdivision process,
Yep.
there was, at least at the time they was approved, a good plan that shows all the easements.
Okay.
And we'll be able to confirm that whatever easements were shown on the plan, are in the right place, number one, and that we do need the rights in them because there's utilities in them.
Okay.
That's really what we need to get
Yeah.
ironed out. And then the home rule petition process, it's sort of when the city council makes the vote under this process, we get those rights. There's no,
Understand.
yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
It's a
Chair.
taking of the rights, essentially.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Irish. Just real quick, I have, kind of a couple of questions just based on some of the other councilors. I understand that we've taken care of these roads, road conditions, but what about snow and ice removal? Do we at all kind of focus on those roads? Kind of what is the criteria for that, where we pick and choose?
So we've been plowing these roads for the most part. I would say close to 100% of them, I would guess.
Okay.
And that's something that's something that the city is expected or allowed to do on these kind of private ways is snow, for emergency purposes, to keep the roads clear of snow.
No, good to know. I appreciate that. Councilor Vital, I saw you had your hand raised.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions. One is, if we go through this process on a street or a series of streets, is it my understanding that the city would then take ownership of it, of that street?
Yes.
And back to what you mentioned, there's one in my mind that's real out there. The gentleman that had the development is no longer living. So how, has the solicitor had an opportunity to look over this thing looked over this procedure? Because that, I could see that being a legal nightmare there, trying to take a street from somebody who's no longer in existence. But their siblings might be.
Yeah, well, so that's the purpose of the home rule petition, is because it wouldn't be possible in a lot of cases to track down who owns the road and fee, who owns easement rights, did the developer retain easement rights, or did they go to whoever bought the lot? So this kind of essentially gets around that by saying, if you go through this process, the city takes the road and fee and would own it, regardless of who may own it now, and the rights to all the easements.
So almost eminent domain,
Yes,
basically.
sort of, yeah, yep.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
And
Councilor
just, I
Lytle.
didn't mention it at the beginning of when we talked about this list. The private ways that are sort of left justified on the list is generally the ones that pertain to this ordinance, just so you can refer back to that. They're not all correct. Some of them shouldn't be that way. So as we move forward with the working group, I intend to kind of hopefully be able to get the definitive list of which ones this home rule petition can pertain to. And then the next part of that procedure is going to be how does the planning board or the city council decide to take up a road?
Right. No, thank you. I think, any other questions from councilors? Councilor Roby?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly hope that the committee supports this petition. I know the planning board has been frustrated with dealing with some residents on their street currently. The developer is still alive, but is not responding to requests to give them information. So this is a tool that works. Other communities have used it. It can work for us. So I certainly support it and hope that it is sent off to the general court so that they can move on it quickly.
Thank you, Councilor Roby. Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much. Once it gets through the State House and comes back to us, this list, is the list initiated within the planning board? Is that the idea?
So,
Similar to how they made this proposal, is that how the process would work?
right, so it explains that the planning board can initiate the process on a road upon the request of either the mayor, the city council, or upon its own initiative. So those are the three ways that a road or a number of roads could be put forth to start this procedure.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that
Yep.
that's the origination. I'm willing to motion to approve.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve. I will just highlight, I believe we got a communication from the planning board asking to change the language slightly, just regarding the beginning of the home rule petition, giving the legislature a little bit more kind of leeway as to how this looks. Okay, as amended.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, so I should give a little background on that too, which I neglected to do. So one of the planning board members reached out to our state rep and just to kind of like understand how the home rule petition process works when it on the state's end. And that was language that was relayed to him that sometimes accompanies these. And what it does is, what it says essentially is that the legislature, if they decide that a minor change in language, in their opinion, should be done, that they can do it without coming back to the city first. I will say that the city solicitor, I'm not sure, thinks that's the best way to proceed with it. I'll leave it at that. They did ask him, and I think the preference from legal department is that the city should really retain final look at whatever the language is, even if it's a minor change.
No, thank you for the information. To my understanding, this will go to legal, but I noticed, Mr. President, you had your hand up.
So I would make, the motion should be to send it up to legal, to put it in proper format. You can send along the planning board's comments, and if legal thinks they're worthwhile, they'll incorporate them. Legal then put it in a proper format to come back down to the council for a vote for approval, so it'd be in a position that the council could approve the home rule petition, and assuming the mayor approves it, we can then send it to the legislature. So the motion should be to send this up to the legal department to get back to us in proper format to submit a home rule petition to the legislature.
Then so moved.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes, Councilor Orm.
May have been brought up, I'm curious. What's the cost to the city of all these old subdivisions that we've been maintaining? Do you have a tally, or have you? If you're not, I'd like to know what the cost is to the city at this present time. And
The cost, like what cost? Maintenance costs or repaving
are you
costs,
accepting
or-
roads that have old pipes that, look, we're looking at Berlin Road, $2 million, I believe. What's the cost? What have we lost as the city in costs by not pursuing these streets?
So,
If you don't have the answer, that's okay, but I'd like to
yeah,
know
I'm just
that
trying to
answer.
fully understand your question. So
So we're plowing, we're maintaining, and this owner who may have passed or doesn't want to deal with the city, I'm concerned about our cost, and if there's a way to get that cost back from the developers, we need to do that, in my view.
If there's any streets on this list, and I'm not sure there's more than maybe a few, where there's still a developer that we can get a hold of, I would recommend to the planning board that those don't go through this process, that the developer should be the one to carry that through. But in most of these, either the entity is gone, the developer's deceased, or not able to be contacted.
And there was no
But we're
bond.
plowing the roads, whether we own them or not, we've been plowing them.
That I respect and understand, but we now have a system where this will never happen again, correct? That we won't be, because you're collecting a bond, am I not correct with that?
Yes.
So if the owner disappears, passes away, whatever, we have the bond, and those are
Correct.
appropriated according to the cost it would be to the city if that person disappears. What I'm trying to figure out, the people that have disappeared, what's the cost to the city? I don't, like I say, you don't have to give me the answer now, but I'm very curious of,
Well, so like I
Cost.
talked about earlier, these are all old roads. They're gonna need maintenance at some point, so I would expect that's gonna be part of the discussion when one or more of these comes before the planning board and then before this body, in what kind of condition is it in, and then it's gonna be a decision, we can present what we think it's gonna cost and when to reconstruct it, but the decision from the city council is going to be, do we say no to that and we're never going to do it because there's no developer that's going to do it? So then what do you tell your
that's understandable,
constituents?
but you have homes on those streets, those residents have been paying taxes, so we have to bite the bullet on that at this point. I get that, but I'm just curious if it's ever been coordinated to the cost that, it sounds like it might be a case-by-case basis when the time
Yeah.
comes, based on the condition of the road, what's inside, underneath the road, water pipes, sewer pipes. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but it's concerning that, a developer made money on a subdivision and disappeared. Or forgot about us, which will never happen again, correct? Because now you
Correct.
require bonds.
But again, most of these, that happened after the road had completed construction. So the city didn't do any of the construction work on that. It was really just the process fell apart
Understand.
paperwork-wise at the end.
Well, we need to chase them down, I respect that, and, the residents are living there, they deserve our services. I'm just curious what the total cost was, and it's too bad previously we weren't collecting the appropriate bonds. That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Orem. Councilor Rossi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Councilor Orm, it's been an issue because we didn't follow the process. We're not going to go back and chase who paid what, or who did what. That's a futile because we can't collect any money. It's just, the process didn't work. We've got the process in place now to make sure new streets get accepted. But to go back and say engineering, try to figure that, don't waste Tom's time. They got more pressing things to do. And there's no value, and so what? He says that we owe him $1 million. We're not going to go get $1 million. There's no value to it. The process was broken. Karen's harped on it all the time. We finally got it back in place again. Planning board's on board with setting bonds and not releasing it until all the paperwork's in place and council accepts the streets. So we're good. So now we've got this void of 50 or so unfinished development streets, because once we accept them, they're not going to go on Tom's list to go fix. And guess what? I've got a whole list of streets that I want fixed that are currently accepted public ways. These ones aren't going to necessarily bump their way up to number one. They're going to have to go through the process of saying, where do they fit? Do they fit our $5 million a year plan to fix streets? And we'll address them as they come. Any emergency repairs, as Tom and the DPW do an outstanding job, they'll fix them as they come up. We're not going to let anything be unsafe. They may not like the bumps on occasion, but there's not going to be anything that's out there that's unsafe. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, President Austin. Councilor Wong.
And again, if it's a tedious exercise, I don't expect that. I was just trying to bring out the reality of the cost. This is going to cost the city, no matter what. And I'm glad it's been resolved. But again, I go back in time and say, why wasn't it caught back in those times? Why weren't we prepared to ask for bonds back in those times? It's concerning, very concerning. As I say, our financing, we got to be tight on it. And now we have to accept these if we do home rule petition. The cost is what concerns me. It's going to be a cost to the city. Thank you.
So just one final, if I
Councilor.
could,
Yep.
Mr. Chair, on that. So say one of these roads is 40 years old, one of the roads on the list. If we had accepted it, if it finished the process 40 years ago, we'd still be sitting here today with a 40-year-old road that needs to be reconstructed. So that's why I wanted to fully understand what you were asking about it with the costs.
Thank you, Mr. Engineer. Councilor Roby.
Thank you. I don't want to belittle this discussion, but I do think the points that were made by Councilor Ossing and by Mr. DePercio are pretty valid. When we accept a street, we don't get money from the developer that then we sit in the bank for 20 years so we can use that to pave it when it falls apart. Right. The city pays for it with bonding, which we do, and as was already stated, we all have lists. We all drive through the streets of Marlborough and surrounding communities. We all know where the potholes are. We all know the streets that need to be repaired. There's already a long list, so these will just be added to that list. If they're not done for 5 years, 10 years, they're just going to get in the queue like every other street in the city of Marlborough. So hopefully the fact that they were not accepted doesn't stop us from accepting them unless there's other mitigating circumstances. But they should have been accepted, and that shouldn't impact the fact that they now need to be or will need to be paved and paid for by the city, not the developer.
Mr. Chair, if I can on
Thank you,
that.
Councilor Roby. Councilor Wong.
Comments, they're good comments. I mean, the reality is there that they could have been 40 years old and accepted 40 years ago. The fact is that a bond would have been held over a developer's head, and I know we didn't have it then, or we were missing something back then, and you wouldn't accept that street unless it was in proper condition to accept. I'm not incorrect with that. If
Well,
you're going to accept a street nowadays with a
So
bond?
my point was, I guess, that they were in proper condition at that time.
Oh, okay. They were, okay.
Yeah, yes. In
They just never got
almost all
accepted.
cases, they were.
Okay, if they were in proper condition back when they were supposed to be accepted, then that obviously is on our end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Warren. Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. I will entertain a motion
Mr.
to
Chair,
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Councilor Irish has made a motion and is seconded by the chair. All those in favor? Opposed? And we are adjourned at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Good evening. I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting on June 16th, 2025 at 7:02 p.m. We have two items on the agenda this evening. Communication from the mayor, transfer request in which moves funds from reserve for salaries and free cash to ratify an agreement with the MMEA. We also have a communication from the mayor with an FY 2026 capital bond request totaling $15,550,000. I'll begin with the first item on the agenda, which is order number 25-100-9473, communication from the mayor with a transfer request in the amount of $226,882.36, which moves funds from reserve for salaries and free cash to various accounts to fund the recently ratified agreement with the Marlborough Municipal Employees Association, which is the MMEA. And I'll begin by reading the letter submitted by the mayor. Honorable President Ossing and councilors, I'm pleased to submit for your review and approval a transfer to fund the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the Marlborough Municipal Employees Association. We are requesting a transfer of $130,388.80 from the reserve for salaries line item, with the remaining $96,493.56 to be transferred from free cash for a total transfer in the amount of $226,882.36. I would like to express my gratitude to the Human Resources Director and the union for their dedication and collaboration in reaching a fair and equitable agreement. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact my office, J. Christian Dumas, Mayor. And with that, I'll open that up if anybody has any questions. Councilor Orm.
Well, I'm not trying to end the discussion, but I'm going to motion to approve based on review of this, the hard work that our municipal employees do. At one point, I was a municipal employee. I get it. In trying to live in this world today with the salaries that are offered, I am 100% in favor of approving this, but not to stop the discussion. But I'll motion to approve.
And I will second that motion. Motion has been made and seconded to approve order number 25-9473, transfer request in the amount of $226,822.36, which removes funds from reserve for salaries and free cash to various accounts to fund the recently ratified agreement. And just for the record, it is $130,388.80 for reserve for salaries and $96,493.56 from the undesignated fund. Any further discussion? Councilor Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I approve of this, but I'm just kind of a teeny bit confused, and might be me and not anyone else in the room. But we anticipated that the contract was going to be negotiated, and we budgeted and with the understanding that it's going to be some money coming that we're going to have to pay for this contract, and we budgeted $130,388.80. That's what we budgeted based on what we thought the contract was going to generate. Now, we found out that we're $96,493 off in our budgeted amount.
And I'm thinking things can change during negotiations when they're working it out with the unions, because I believe the contract was identical to 3 years ago, except for some other amendments to the contract. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we put money in reserve for salaries in anticipation of what the contracts are. It's not even close to what the actual settlements are, Councilor Vital. So we've got two contracts we haven't even settled yet, the firefighters and the laborers, and we don't have any money left in reserve for salaries. So we do the best we can. The city council reduced it by $300,000 last year. Right? We reduced it by 700 or some amount next year. And what we do is we move money from free cash, from underspent salary line items to cover that. So it's not that we budgeted $138,000 for this contract. That's just the balance in the reserve for salary account that was available at the time, and the mayor made up the difference by taking the balance to fund the contract through free cash.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It carries 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. Did I say 5? 5. It carries 5 to 0. Thank you. Carries 5 to 0.
The math wasn't
Next up is order number 25-100-9428, communication from the mayor with an FY 2026 capital bond request totaling $15,550,000 as outlined in this year's capital improvement plan. The proposed borrowing will fund a range of facilities, utilities, and street improvement projects undertaken by the Department of Public Works. I'll read the letter that was submitted by the mayor. Dear Council President Ossing and councils, enclosed for your review and approval are the FY 2026 capital bond request totaling $15,550,000. As outlined in this year's capital improvement plan, this proposed borrowing will fund a range of facility, utilities, and street improvements projects undertaken by the Department of Public Works. The funding will support critical infrastructure efforts, including road paving and reconstruction, water and sewer main replacements, upgrades at the Lakeshore and Birch Road pumping stations, repairs to the Court Street garage, the HVAC and generator improvement at the elementary schools. Among other projects, this investment reflects our continued commitment to maintaining and enhancing Marlboro's infrastructure and ensure we remain on track with the central long-term improvements. A detailed list of the itemized projects and their projected costs is included for your reference. Commissioner Ted Scott, Comptroller Brian Duhaney, and Auditor Diane Smith. And I will be at the future Finance Committee meeting to answer any questions you may have. Sincerely, J. Christian Dumas, Mayor. Also, I want to touch base on a supplemental letter that the mayor had sent over. That also enclosed the following. That included the spreadsheet detailing the FY 26 capital bond projects, associated costs, and funding sources. A letter from the DPW Commissioner Theodore Scott describing the projects tied to the bond request, including associated dollar amounts. Projected debt service schedule for the proposed bonds with an estimated interest. And the fourth one was the FY 2025 to FY 29 capital improvement plan spreadsheet showing both actual and projected cost. So with that said, I will bring up Commissioner Scott. If we, Finance Committee has any questions, and with that, I will begin with the first one on the list was a bond for $9,650,000, and this was broken down with some road reconstruction, Jarg School emergency generator, and the Whitcomb School HVAC controls. So with that said, I'll open it up to the committee. Oh. Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Just a couple quick questions. I know that I had seen the parking lot reconstruction project. That's for the over at Williams Street, I'm guessing for the ball fields. Could you just kind of go into some detail about that project? And from my understanding, maybe things have changed, but I remember it used to be a dirt, most of them are dirt kind of parking lots, driveways, all that sort of stuff. So kind of what's the project looking like?
So this isn't the Williams Street, this is on Williams Street. So because of the boardwalk and the parking at the boardwalk, they're parking in the courthouse down during the week, which is, the court's not too happy with that. So these are vacant lots to the left, if you're looking at the courthouse, to the left, away from the boardwalk. So, and the reason there's two of them is because there's wetlands in between. So we're creating two parking lots. The one furthest to the left is right at the Williams Street parking. So the ball field can use those. They can be used for the boardwalk. So it's a dual purpose thing.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate that better. Now I have a better understanding of what it is we're doing there. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Orm.
Well, that was my first question. You and I think. But the second question I have is the Court Street parking garage rehabilitation.
Yeah, so the Court Street garage is in a tough shape. So there's structural issues. If they go any further, we're gonna have some major issues with some of the steel. It's corroded. You have some concrete issues too. So what we've done with our design is to contract with a designer that's given us what are the major things that need to be fixed structurally and to provide coatings and things to maintain it. And if you notice in there, you'll have expansion joints where the concrete meets and it's probably an inch thick. There's sealant that goes in there. If the sealant, falls in disrepair, it allows salt water to come down and corrode even more. So we also, in that, have like a preventive maintenance plan. Once we fix this, then we'll get on a preventive maintenance plan. So it's that. Electrical is in tough shape because of the water intrusion, so that will be replaced. There's some other work with the drainage pipes as well that are corroded, so that's kind of the outlook on that. And that really does need to happen soon. If you look at one of the ramps with the steel column, the flange is delaminating, and if it goes any further, that holds up the rest of all the levels above it, so we can't let that fall in disrepair.
No, and I appreciate how about the other garage up the street?
So the other garage was done several years back. I think when we did that, we did repair some things, but I guess at the time didn't realize how much preventive maintenance on these garages needs to be, so it wasn't kept up as much as it should be, so there is some disrepair in that, and I believe we need to spend some money on that to get it back to a certain point where we can get on a preventive maintenance schedule with that as well.
And what's the garage, about 40 years old or so, maybe 45, 50?
Probably.
Give or take, 78, maybe in that area.
Hogan era, I believe, so.
No, it's been there for a while. I was sitting in the garage in my car, and it's amazing, sometimes it moves. I suppose
it's supposed to move, yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of scary. I didn't know it moved like that. The other question is, how'd you come up with the 2 million?
So we have the design done.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yes, we appropriated that before, the design for it.
Okay.
So we've got a cost estimate, and that's where we came up with
From that
the
design.
number. Again, that's a engineering estimate, and these rehab ones are something that, once you get into it, there may be some additional money we have to find, but that's basically the price of it. Yeah.
So presently 2 million, possible cost overrun if we find something serious.
But we'll absorb that at the DPW. We'll make the decision whether we go ahead with something or we'll have to wait for a few years later.
Okay.
Basically, this covers the 2 million covers everything that needs to be done right away.
Well, based on safety, obviously, it has to.
And if the bids come in lower, we'll do extra stuff as well. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I'm
Thank you,
going to go
Mr.
to
Chair.
Council Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to elaborate a little bit on the William Street parking lot. It's the parking lot between the two fields where they're building the new playground?
No.
Is that the
This is
same?
William Street, so that's the William Street ball field parking, the gravel in between.
Oh, that's right.
That's not, this is new parking lots. If you're looking at William Street at the ball to the right, where Ladue Field,
Yep.
the furthest one to the right, that vacant lot right there.
Yep.
That's where one of them will go, and then there's a section of wetlands, then there'll be the other section of parking there. So there'll be totally new parking areas.
Between the
vacant lots.
ballparks and the courthouse?
Correct, yep.
For the,
For the ball field or the boardwalk, or just for parking.
but we're not improving any of the existing parking lots, either the one between the fields or the one behind that's on
Not at this
Lazat
time.
Drive?
Right now, we're looking at that complex in stages. Right now, we're looking at the playground and doing that, and then evaluating.
Okay. 'Cause the one in the back that's on Lazat Drive, I'd like, if the conservation would give us permission, I would like to expand that so that it would have a better access to the walkway.
So.
A developer that might help us with that somewhere down the road.
So these
as well.
parking lots, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, one or both parking lots will have access to the trail,
Oh, very
new
good.
ones, yep.
And my other question is the Jarwick emergency generator, do we have one now?
No,
So this is this is something that we need to have, and...
Yes. So the Jarrick School goes down quite a bit. It's almost like Rich's school. They go down quite a bit. What we have now is a hookup, so if we lose power, school can't run, obviously. Yeah, we just have the battery emergency lights to allow people to get out of there. If it happens in the winter, we have to bring a temporary generator, hook it up, and at least run the boilers so that we don't freeze the sprinkler and all the pipes in there. So to get this would be very important.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So a little bit more time on William Street for a sec. You're going to get the two parking lots. What the city engineer said is each of those two parking lots are going to have individual paths to the trail. Is that the intent? Oh, I'd love you to get up there. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, that's correct. At the back of each of the new parking lots, it's not very far from there to where the loop trail that goes around the lake is. So we'll connect it to that woods trail, and
Yeah.
that you can get from there.
Right, and it'll be a footpath trail.
Right, correct.
To get to that. Okay, okay. Are the sidewalks going to be improved? What are the conditions on the sidewalk?
So there's sidewalks all the way from these parking lots to the boardwalk.
To the boardwalk?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
there's
And
now
those are in
two
good
options.
condition.
You can either do the trails or the sidewalks.
Correct.
And the sidewalks are in great condition, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, okay. The other question, just another part of town, Berlin Road, the water replacement, that's a very large bond. How much of the Berlin Road are you going to be replacing?
With the water main?
Yeah,
From Pleasant Street to West Hill Road.
Pleasant to what?
West Hill Road.
Pleasant to West, okay, okay, great. Thank you for that, appreciate it.
I just want to follow up too. I know President Ossing mentioned that there's still 2 contracts to be ratified. Question for the mayor, did you consider using any free cash for like the emergency generator or the HVAC, considering that this is June 16th? I was just wondering on that as well. If you could answer that, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so I know President Ossing mentioned that there's still 2 contracts to be ratified.
Correct.
We're June 16th today, still have free cash. Was it considered to use the free cash for the emergency generator or the HVAC controls?
Our free cash is about 2.6 that we have remaining, so it's up for the council to appropriate that fund. So I can have Brian come up and attest to that to see what the difference is. I know that we want to save on interest.
Wait,
and I
how much
understand
was the free?
About 2.6 when
Okay,
everything's
I
said and
apologize, I
done.
thought it was more than that.
So free cash is running a little low. So we'd like to be around the 3 million mark, and we're kind of under that.
No, absolutely,
So,
yeah.
that's just my only concern, is like, I don't want to push that any lower than what it is.
No, I was just concerned because it's in the energy, but I understand that, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
If I may jump in.
Thank you.
So I think free cash is even a little bit less than that. Now we took another 100,000 out of it.
96,
So
yeah.
my concern is you want to make sure you're covering snow and ice. Because if you don't cover snow and ice in the next year, you're going to have to raise it in the tax overlay. We are talking about taxes where they are already. So we know snow and ice this past year, I think it was 1.4 million.
Yep.
However, that wasn't a bad year. So, my thought is you need at least $2 million just to cover that snow and ice for the following year. So I wouldn't want to go below that. Again, that gap doesn't give us enough to do that generator.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Council Vital?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the funding of the capital bond requested in the amount of $9,650,000.
Motion's been made to approve the bond request in the amount of $9,650,000. Any further discussion? Council Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I may ask this when it comes up, but do we own the parking garages?
No.
So why is the city bonding to repair them versus whoever does own them?
I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So, Council Rowe, if you recall back when we were doing the downtown parking studies and where things were going to go, it turns out the CDA deeded over to us in 2018. I'm looking at the stuff now. We maintain them, but we don't own them. That was the issue. So we maintain them.
Why did they deed them but not give them to us? Can we ask for them outright?
I will not take up this meeting explaining that, but I will send you all sorts of information.
Okay.
And you can go through it.
My other question is, Maple Street has a portion. What portion will be paved or reconstructed, I guess it's, and also Savin is just a portion, which,
So Maple Street, it's old Maple Street, so from the intersection of the end of South Bolton to Main Street.
okay. And that's the part that the city owns versus the state owned?
No, the city owns the other section as well.
Okay,
The Route 85 section is also city-owned.
all right. And then
Oh, and
Salwin?
Salwin is from East Main to Church.
Okay. And the residents on those streets then will know, they'll get the typical letters?
Yes.
And I guess I'm curious, maybe to the mayor, I know we were all asked to submit streets. I know none of the streets I submitted are on here. How is it decided? Is it basically cost? Because I'm sure it would have, some of my suggestions would have probably taken that whole 4 million, but just so residents know, I know we got a request from a resident who was upset that their street hadn't been paved back at a different time when a nearby street was. So how do you make the decision?
Sure, through the chair. It's a variable of reasons why. So we actually go with the infrastructure first, see what projects are getting done with infrastructure, and then it's just based upon need and then cost. So it's a revolving need based upon there's been a history of repairing a road and then breaking the road to fix the infrastructure. So now we're looking at the actual infrastructure first, coordinating with National Grid, our water and sewer infrastructure, and then that's the priority first. And that's why Berlin Road is getting the infrastructure done first, and then we can hopefully fix Berlin Road. So it's just based upon the infrastructure needs and demands, and then we take it to the level to actually paving.
Thank you.
Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. As far as the Maple Street segment, that's been under construction now for at least 6 months, various parts of Maple Street. Is that addressing issues that have cropped up, or was this part of the bigger plan?
So that was, and actually, so Maple Street and Berlin Road, the ones we mentioned now, that was through coordination with Eversource. Eversource went in, and they have a capital improvement plan themselves to replace old gas mains.
Oh, okay.
And so part of the answer to Council Roby's question about how we decide is through, a lot of it has been through coordination with Eversource. They've been very aggressive in trying to replace a good portion of their old and aging gas mains. So we try to coordinate with them with roads that we know are kind of in our radar, 5-year window radar. And ideally, they go in first, do their work, which is what happened on Maple Street and Berlin Road. And then we follow up after that and reconstruct the road.
Okay.
And do whatever infrastructure work that we need to
So
do.
if you find if there's any pipe water issues, sewer issues that may potentially crop up, you check for that as part of the process and take care of that before.
Yeah, correct. Berlin Road, we know it has an aging, there's a real water main problem there, so between that and Eversource and the pavement condition, that was really, that one was, rose to the top of the list for those reasons.
Am I hearing you say Berlin
Just for this.
It's a water main replacement.
The water main.
The water
main.
Yeah, it's further down in the bond cycle.
Yep.
Yeah, correct. We're
Yeah, but
jumping.
there was a question about the water main.
Yeah, it's a big water main replacement, but yes. Yeah. Well, $1 million discussion, no, 900,000 discussion, actually, but yes. Thank you very much.
Okay. Councilor Orm?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can tell you the people on Berlin Road will be happy. I'm sure the city councilors that represent that area will be happy once all that's done, because that road is pathetic. And there was some work done recently, because I went down it, and was that the utilities that did that work?
That was that was the Streets Department of the DPW. Much like when you asked, what do we do to try to keep spots safe, that was a problem area where, much like Ash Street, where we start doing potholes, and it's scab upon scab upon scab, and you can't keep the area safe. So we cut out a section and did it, and that was towards Bigelow. We did that section. There was a couple pothole claims in there. We just couldn't keep the area safe, so we go in and cut out a section. So that's done with the DPW budget.
Magic word, safety. And again, it's quite a rough ride going down here. It keeps the traffic going slow, but still, I appreciate you moving on with Berlin Road. I'm looking at the city debt payment schedule. It looks good right now. You know, it's going down, but that means you're not going to be asking for any further capital improvements till 2047? I know you're not. I'm just being wise in that respect. But obviously, it goes down year by year for the final payment at 4.5%, and obviously that's going to change, because I'm sure we'll be back here next year if we're all here talking about capital improvements. The 4.5%, is that guaranteed for so many years? If someone...
Yes, it should be fixed in, yeah.
I know it's written down for all the years till 2047, but I figured that's a guesstimate.
So the interest rate is just an estimate. That's pretty much a conservative estimate based on where we have now. We just did a bond. It came in, closer to the 4%.
Oh, good.
But we were projecting 5%, so we had a good year this year. So we did a blend between the 4 and the 5 and did 4.5 moving forward.
Okay, that's great. It's good news. So I was just curious. And we'll see a change. These bonds can go for 10 years, give or take. We'll see a change down the road to the bond ratings as well, the interest rates.
Exactly. I mean, I can be in for 2 years, so I kind of, as we get closer to the time of bonding, do I ban for another year, or do I bond it based on where we think interest rates will go?
I see.
If they're going to head up, then I probably would bond it sooner. If we think they're going to head down, you take a gamble.
You work with
one more year.
Work with the market and what our rating is and so forth. Thank you.
Well, hopefully our rating stays AAA, Council.
That's right.
Yes, I agree. With you here, it should. I put you up against that. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Any further?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No further discussion. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the bond request in the amount of $9,650,000. All in favor? It carries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next up is a bond request for $3,500,000, and this covers Lakeshore Drive pumping, Birch Road pumping, and Matheson Drive pumping station rehabilitation for the $1 million. Any questions in regards to Councilor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, seeing Lakeshore Drive Pumping Station is a good sign for me in Ward 6, so very appreciative in Birch Road as well. Just a question about those two projects in particular, why the kind of $1 million change? Could you just go through what the two projects entail and why there's some different price tags on each one?
Sorry. You're asking about the difference between the cost of the two?
Yeah, Lakeshore and Birch, and just kind of the scope of the project. What
Yeah, so Lakeshore Drive pumping stations, and you and I have discussed this one. It's a really small pump station. It serves 10 homes.
Yep.
And we're evaluating what will probably be the removal of that pump station from service and replacement by individual pumps at the homes. And then Birch Road is much more in line with our other larger, normal-sized pump stations, I would say.
No, I appreciate it. I know we've had conversations in the past kind of about this, so good to finally see it on here and happy to support it, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. Councilor Orm.
The age of those pumps, are they close to what Cullinane Drive had? You did the Cullinane Drive one recently. I figured they all went in close to the same time period.
They're all of the same vintage, yeah, and there's the same type of pump station, which we're kind of getting away from that type and going with different, more modern type of pump stations and kind of standardizing them as we go. So they're big projects, these pump station replacements.
Will that help too, if I may, and thank you for your answer, will that help with the I&I inflow infiltration at all, if there is any in that area?
No, no, it's unrelated to that. The I&I is really a function of the collection system that delivers the sewage to the pump station. So the replacement of the station doesn't really affect
I didn't know
the I&I either way.
weaker pumps were causing, you're getting inflow infiltration, but I wasn't for sure. But it's still welcoming. We don't want one of those pumps to break down, or we'll be having pump sewer trucks going through the neighborhoods until they're fixed. So it's good to be proactive, so I'm in support of this request. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So one of the comments you said is that you're taking a pump station was more supporting multiple houses and now giving each of the houses their own individual pumping units. So yeah, I assume the expectation if one goes down only impacts one house. So it doesn't have to worry about other houses being affected if one pump goes down. But are these pumps repairable, or are they the things that get replaced when it goes bad?
They're repairable, and there's a technology that is well established now that wasn't available when the Lakeshore Pump Station was built. And based on that, this new type of technology, very reliable pumps, and low maintenance, low operating cost. So that's why we chose to go this route and kind of take this old pump station that's really in a location where it wasn't super feasible to be able to replace that with a new station. And the ownership, it was questionable what rights or what ownership the city has in the land where this existing pump station is. So for a lot of reasons, it made sense to go this route, and we've had meetings with the neighborhood, as we kind of came to this decision.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you, Councilor Doucette. Councilor Willoughby?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bond and some of the others that we're going to be talking about, you're borrowing the money from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust differently than borrowing from whoever else you borrow for bonding. Does that change the interest rate? Is this like when we borrowed for the lead pipe replacement where we got zero interest?
Yeah, that came from zero interest came from MWRA. Yeah.
Is it a pipe dream?
Yeah.
So these bonds are city bonds. The Clean Water Trust is a separate bonding source, and those are a separate bond altogether. When we do those are 0% financing, which we've done, but that's not the case on this pump station.
Okay, thank you. Thought I'd...
Thank you, Councilor Willoughby. Councilor Chillo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to approve the $3,500,000 for the sewer pumping station capital bond request.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the bond request in the amount of $3,500,000. Any further discussion? All in favor? It carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next up is the bond request from the Department of Public Works for the amount of $1,400,000, sewer main construction for Turner Ridge, and sewer mitigation for various streets for $400,000. Councilor Vital.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so folks know this is probably the one project that I get the most amount of calls on. This is a last phase of a multi-phase project that's been going on for over a decade, I believe, right? Since we started, I think it was two Ward 1 councilors ago started this. So I was enthusiastically moved to approve this bond.
Motion's been made. I will second that to approve the bond request in the amount of $1,400,000 for the sewer main construction and sewer mitigation for various streets. Any further discussion?
Just one question.
Councilwoman.
I support this, Councilor Vital, just so you know. But the question would be on the sewer main construction on Turner Ridge and Stonehill Roads. Will they be under the same conditions that the rest of Ward 1 mostly are under, that when you go to, whatever the conditions might be, sale of a home, that they need to tie in, or will they need to tie in before the sale of a home?
No. No, they would fall into, under the ordinance like any other home. They wouldn't be required to connect until they sell the house.
Until they sell. Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Councilor. Motion's been made and seconded to approve. All in favor? It carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, next up is a bond request in the amount of $1 million for the water main replacement on Berlin Road portion for $1 million. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I share Councilor Vital's level of excitement for this particular project. That is, for the chair and I, it's a shared street for Ward 4 and Ward 5, and I know that both the chair and I have advocated for some work to be done on this road for quite a while, so just thank you for getting the work started by doing the water main replacements, so I would like to move to approve.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the bond request in the amount of $1 million for the water main replacement Berlin Road portion for $1 million. Any further discussion? Councilor Orr?
Just a quick question again, and and I'm 100% for this too. I got complaints too, and I'm not the ward councilors. When can we expect how many years do we expect this to occur, months, and then when can we expect a request to pave the road?
So we're getting late in the year, so we're going to have, assuming this does get approved, Mark and myself and Ted, we're going to have a conversation about what makes the most sense about when to bid this. Doing the work in the winter is never ideal, so yeah, that's going to be the decision. We'll have to project out when we start the bidding process, when can we award, when can we expect a contractor to be able to mobilize and start, and then see what we have left in the construction season and decide if it doesn't make sense to start that at that time or wait until the spring.
Until next spring. And then, do you have an idea how long it will take to replace the water lines so we can get to the next step, and that is to do the paving?
I'll look to Mark for his input here too, but I would say a whole construction season, safe to say.
So 2 years is what you're saying? One, put the water lines in, the next season to do the paving? Give or take?
Yeah, I mean, that can overlap, you know, these are all kind of what'll play into the whole calculus about when we bid it. You know, some things can happen at the same time. It's a long stretch.
I get it. It's hard to look into a crystal ball and give me an exact, but if I say an average of 2 years, if anyone asks me, is that a fair?
I would say 2 construction seasons.
2 construction seasons. Thank you. Thank you. In case I get asked, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Councilor Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask, were these bonds advertised? I don't remember. They were, so we could vote on Monday?
Yeah, I was thinking once I report.
You suspend? Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Roby. Motion's been made and seconded to approve. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if the committee is okay after I report it out at the meeting, Mr. President, I can move to advertise. All. Councilor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to adjourn.
Motion's made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Motion to adjourn. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are adjourned at 7:41 PM. Thank you.